Morning, Andy. Thanks for coming on to having a chat. We'll fly straight into it then. So before we get more in detail about Rezzil, can you give us a bit of background on yourself and your career leading up to when you set up?
Yeah, no problem. So Andy Etches, sports director and co-founder of Rezzil. Prior to Rezzil, I basically worked in football for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I've had a couple of other startups in different industries, but everything I've ever done has typically been focused around making data and information more accessible and usable to the people who are going to actually end up doing it. And Rezzil continues in that fashion, either from a data creation point of view or from a actual presentation point of view.
Right, and so you mentioned some of your previous careers. How do you think have they helped you, or have any of them hindered you maybe in your journey with Rezzil?
I think they've probably been quite helpful. I think anything you do can be, is always going to add experience and knowledge, even if it's from a completely different sector. A lot of the time, if you come from something that is completely abstract to your current role, you find that you can offer a different perspective to what people are used to. Because especially in football, where, the endemic thing is we've always done it this way. Often it's interesting to offer an alternative perspective. Obviously, an alternative perspective with knowledge and grounding and support, not just something you've made up. But, the ability to be able to say, well, we presented data like this in the past, and we could do it like this for you guys too. Or just, I guess, shine a mirror on some aspects of how things are done. And highlight that it could be faster, more efficient, or better is what I've learned from previous roles as well.
So we've mentioned sort of the name Rezzil. What exactly is it in a nutshell?
It's a virtual reality platform first and foremost that is used at elite football level. Everything from medical usage through to cognitive training. And it's used, well, I don't want to say the phrase all the way down to, I mean all the way across to everything from high school level, grassroots football, and so on. And at that level, it's really used for developing players or building confidence in young players, encouraging greater participation in team sport for young players as well, because obviously in team sport, kids can be reluctant to play because they may feel that they might have best taken out of them in a nutshell. Yeah. If they mess up. Obviously, one of the beauties of VR and Rezzil is that it's an individual experience. So if kids do make a mistake, no one's going to shout them. It helps them build that confidence under pressure as well. In game style situations. So it's really powerful at that level. But then, like I say, we've got French World, the French Football Federation, current World Cup holders also using it at the top level. So it's got a vast range of capability.
And so you have the idea for Rezzil. When did that come about, and what was your inspiration for it?
So it's not just myself involved in the company. There's two other co-founders, Adam and Gaz. Adam and Gaz have worked together previously, and they were working on a fan experience in VR, which uses the same principle as what we do currently. They basically were looking for someone to help make it more, just sell it basically in sport. Obviously, my background being in that, I was approached and joined the company and said, this has probably got more future as an elite platform than it has as a fan experience, because you only kind of get one hit with fan experiences.
Yeah.
Whereas with elite products, it's a harder pathway, but it'll be there for longer, and it's a more sustainable business long term. The long-term goal for us as well has always been to release as a consumer platform, so as a game. And obviously we're going to be going into people's homes pretty soon with something that we can legitimately say is used by the world's best players, and you can use it at home too. Although it's not going to be the same as what we sell into the shops and schools and so on.
So we touch on the game aspect just a bit later, but how long from them having the idea, from you becoming involved, did it take from being the concept, the idea, to being the finished article?
So I joined after about a month after had the idea originally. So there's not a great deal of difference in terms of time in that regard. But it's been 2 years really in the making to make it into a platform that's saleable, that's effective at top level. And the last year we basically spent just cementing that reputation and building brand on that. So I'd say there's 2 years of real hard groundwork going into it. And the last year, again, it's obviously been hard groundwork as well, but it's more growth. That we're at the growth phase now.
And so if we talk about the sort of different aspects to it, then I know there's probably a lot to cover, but the different solutions available on the overall platform. If we start with Elite, where's that being used and what are its benefits?
So on the Elite side, which is mostly effective in a medical setting. So we've got 4 of the top 6 in the Premier League currently using it, for example. 1 local to us, or 2 local to us. If we're in Manchester, you can figure out who we're talking about. They basically in a first team medical room, and if a player is injured, they're obviously unable to kick a real ball. They may not be at running phase yet. They may not be able to even go past being on a bike. With Rezzil, you can basically have them on the feet interacting with a ball, even though it's a virtual ball, and triggering all of those muscle memory, all of that, all of the neurological processes that they will be doing in a real game, such as reacting to a stimulus, receiving a ball, finding a target, deliver the ball back to the target in increasing pressure style situations, but all with really low physical load and 0 risk of re-injury. So obviously that's a really attractive thing to get players back up on their feet and interacting sooner. So at that level, maintenance is its real gold standard. It's really good for maintaining that kind of cognitive function at elite players. Step down a level slightly to the academy, elite academies. And that's where we become, we've got a slightly wider range of use cases. So we're looking at cognitive development, so players' assessment of, is this player ready to move up to the next level or so on. And that's basically focused on our Rezzil Index platform. That's used everywhere across pretty much loads of academies across the world to identify players' capabilities. Everyone gets scored out of 100, but then it's also broken down into different levels. So, what their composure score is, what their reaction time is, what's their dwell on the ball on average. So how long does it take them to react to, receiving a ball, finding the target, putting the ball back in the target in those kind of pressure situations. You can get a lot of real interesting insight into what's going on in a player's head using the Rezzil Index system. And then finally, we also have the analysis platform, which is basically accessible to everybody who's got tracking data. That is used, again, top level, but also we've got teams in America, private academies, who just use the system as well. So it's a really interesting way. It's like an elite level analysis platform, but it's 95 quid a month, which is incredibly cheap. Anything else that's out there.
And so what we then touched on a little bit earlier as well. So what's the Rezzil player in terms of that's the virtual reality game, is it? Or
Yeah, so Rezzil players basically, it's a game. It's taking all of that elite level learnings and all of those great things that you can do with the elite clubs. We use the same game engine, so the same physics and everything, but it's presented in a more entertaining way. It's not got any of the reporting, the analysis, and the data that you would get from the people. That's where the value is on that side. All this is basically you can have fun in your living room, scoring as many goals as you can, aiming for targets and so on. Yeah. It's just really fun, a fun game. We are adding to that though one of the elite level drills, a game called Colour Combo. It's probably one of our most popular games in the elite side. We're going to release that also to the general public as a global competition. We see a real future in esports in this because esports at the moment is sedentary in a sedentary world. Obviously, I know that they are elite athletes in esports. From cognitively and even physically. But we want to see more movement, so we're releasing a physical esport, one that will make you sweat and will make you get up. And we're going to see what happens with that.
Yeah, great. And so, can you tell us a little bit about? Got 2 people really involved with Rezzil. So first, Vincent Kompany's role with you guys, and then Mikel Antonio?
So company came on board around 18 months ago. He's acted as a consultant for us in terms of giving us information on, what he thinks would make the platform a little bit better, what it takes to become an athlete of his standard. Is probably the key thing, and that insight when he joined was really valuable. Obviously, since he's been to Anderlecht, we're learning more about the team side of things as well. But yeah, it's been a fantastic help. Mikel's quite new to us, but I think what we've learned from that is obviously a lot about working through a real injury period with Mikel when he came on board, and obviously through lockdown too. I think we worked with him quite closely over that. You may have seen some of the press out there. He said some really positive things about how Rezzil helped and so on. So yeah, it's been interesting, but we're early in the journey there, and I'm sure we'll get a lot more exciting things over time too.
Yeah, because he hasn't stopped scoring since he started using it.
I mean, the last thing I'm going to do is take credit for someone's hard work. Hopefully, we played a part. I think that's the goal. If we've always said, in elite sport, 1% difference is difference between a great player and a good player, and hopefully we can form part of that 1%. That's the goal. All the hard work and credit belongs to the players. We're just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and so you talked about how it goes across the spectrum, but how accessible, how tangible is the Rezzil software for example, a secondary school or an amateur club or a university, that type of setup?
Believe it or not, it's really accessible. One of the key things, just from an operational standpoint, let's put it this way, an operational standpoint is that when you operate at elite level, the margins are so tight and the timelines are so small. And the processes, if you can imagine, like Jurgen Klopp's process from start to finish, it's brutal. Every single element is controlled, and every minute of the day is planned for. So to shoehorn yourself into that process isn't easy. So we've made a platform that is easy, and it's a light touch. It automatically does 90% of the work for you. From an operational standpoint, all you've got to do is type in a user's name and press go. Everything else is done. The system takes over and it runs. So operationally, you can train anybody to do it in 5 minutes. Most kids themselves will basically know what to do with it straight away. You can be self-guided. Cost-wise, most schools will probably already have 50 to 80% of the hardware on site already, because it's just a fast gaming PC. Obviously, you will need a virtual reality headset as well, but they're not. They're always coming down in price. And software-wise, the software is becoming cheaper all the time. Like everything, technology, things start expensive, but they become more and more accessible. We're at that point now.
Definitely. And so, for you personally, if you have to choose one aspect from the range that excites you the most, what would it be at the moment?
I think the Rezzil Index is probably the key. That's the one that we use at every level, really. The Rezzil Index. It's academically validated to be able to identify players of different skill levels, different capabilities, but also it's really useful at all levels of the game. When we're talking maybe about schools and so on, about being able to identify strengths and weaknesses in a player's game. A young player who basically is rushing themselves too much on the ball. It's you as a coach. It's fine for you to tell that player, you think you're rushing too much, but they may or may not listen to you.
Yeah.
So we can show you like black and white. This is something that would improve your game. You're rushing yourself too much, and therefore this is why your accuracy is low, or so on, or vice versa. Your accuracy is great, but you take too long on the ball. You can present that in a black and white setting, and it really does help players understand that this is something they can do to improve, and they can see real improvements over time. It's quite motivating.
Yeah, so it's the type of thing that coaches would just notice in the past, but now they can actually show the numbers, show how it develops. So for you, as a business owner or as a founder, how badly or well has the coronavirus pandemic affected Rezzil?
It's not helped. I don't think it's helped anybody. But we're certainly not going to complain. I think there's people out there in much worse situations than we are. I think the difficult part we've had is it's obviously restricted our access to training grounds. So
Yeah.
Haven't been able to work as closely as we would do with our partner teams as we normally would do. But on the flip side, it's presenting some brand new opportunities as well. So there's a number of elite players, Premier League players out there now who have a kit at home because obviously their training time and contact time has been reduced. So what they've asked for is a kit to be put in home so they can do tactical training. Obviously, they can be remotely monitored as well. So all of the data that the system collects is presented on a portal so that the actual clubs themselves can go, we know that this player did X amount of this time in this drill at any given moment. So, it's had its downside, it's had its upsides. We're lucky to be quite well protected by the fact that we are a global company. We're based in Manchester. We've got offices in 20 countries now, I think, which is crazy. So, it's not like if one country locks down, another one opens up and so on. So it's just keeping the ball rolling basically all the way through. So it's been quite interesting in that regard.
And how competitive or difficult have you found the sports technology industry?
It's definitely difficult with, luckily, like I say, I've been in sports tech for 10 years and one of my roles is to be the person that I'm talking to now. when it goes to a club, I've been that guy going, no, I don't want to see this, and a difficult person to get past. Unfortunately, apologies to anyone who also is in sports tech. But the difficulty has been going on with VR, to be quite honest. People see it as, I've seen VR before, it's not very good, until they actually physically see our VR and see how different it is to anything that they've seen before and how capable it is and so on. It's really hard to break the door down. Luckily, we've been around for a few years now, so when people see us, they probably know who we are and they've probably heard someone say, this is something you should see. We know we can confidently go in there now and go, if you don't believe us, ask Vincent Company, ask Michael Antonio, or ask such and such a manager at any top Premier League club, and we'll likely get a very good response. That's the confidence that we've got. But breaking that barrier first over the last 3 years has been tough. But luckily, we're there now. We've done it.
So you mentioned that you've been around a long time. You're there, but as someone who's been involved with startups throughout your career, what advice would you give to someone who's got an idea and they're looking to get going, get started?
Keep going, really. is the key thing. Focus on growth first and foremost. That's the most important thing. In any kind of startup, the more people using it, the more voices you've got supporting you. That is, I think, the key driver for any successful startup is basically building a wealth of support. That helps you from from a financial aspect as well, because people will do your advertising for you. You can bootstrap a lot easier if there's 100 voices out there saying this is an amazing platform, as opposed to just you in the room shouting it.
Yeah. And so finally, then we finish off with a couple of the questions about you. What helps you switch off when you're not in work, when you're not doing Rezzil? What helps you switch off?
Wish I could, to be honest with you. I think I guess the one thing is I used to play basketball when I was younger, and I'm lucky enough to live in a building where there's a gym with a basketball court in it, and that is basically anytime I need to clear my head or just think about something freely, I'll just go and play. I'll just go shoot some hoops for a little bit, and that's the only thing that will clear my mind for a little bit. I'll go to the gym, but aside from that, I'm pretty much always on.
And so do you have a favourite basketball team or just a sports team generally that you follow?
Well, obviously, I think the Bulls. I'm 40 years old, so the Bulls from the 90s were always my thing.
Yeah.
Growing up, but I'm also a Man United fan as well. So, a bit of both of those two.
Do you still get to Old Trafford?
Not so much. I mean, there is that weird thing of working in football. You spend more time not being able to actually watch it than working in it. It's a thing. I mean, when I used to work for Man City, it was very odd because obviously United were often playing at the same time, and it's like, I want to watch that, but I'm at the Etihad doing something. You tend not to see as much football. It's weird, very odd thing.
And so for you, you mentioned a couple of different teams, sports, but if you had to pick one as your favourite athlete of all time, who would it be and why?
I know it's a massive cliche, but it's Michael Jordan, isn't it? Just because, the athleticism, the focus, the fact he's clearly not a very nice person, but so driven and so successful.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's the epitome of you know, the great leader to go away and come back as well, just for a short period of time, but you know, for as long as he did and come back and then win again is unreal.
Especially after that Netflix documentary as well, it was amazing.
Yeah, I've seen it now, you know.
And for you, who's the most impressive or inspiring person you've met, and it's not necessarily through your work, but just generally?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be quite frank. To be honest with you, I know that's a lame thing to say, but my wife's a head teacher at school. She's young to be a head teacher, and you know, she's worked incredibly hard and really focused to get to where she is. I think it's a tough thing to do. It's a bit of a man's world being a head teacher, to be quite frank. She's delivered. It's impressive.
And so then, just to finish off, what does the future hold for you and Rezzil going forward?
I think further extreme steps forward in technology. Basically, you know, our only limiting factor is by what hardware is out there. And the minute that it comes out, we'll do something amazing on it, whatever that next piece of hardware is. You know, we're ready for, you know, AR. We're ready for the next steps up in VR, and obviously we're ready for we're developing things that aren't just based in a headset. They're also based in other kind of peripherals and hardware as well.
Great. Well, listen, cheers, Andy, for coming on, for having a chat, and speak to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Cheers.